The Lego sun poured into the mansion, lighting up the marble floors and bouncing off the chandelier above. She sat at her vanity, slipping on her earrings, admiring her own reflection as if the world existed only to watch her shine. Behind her, her husband stood tall, already dressed for the day in spotless white. He reminded her of the charity gala that evening, the hospital wing they were unveiling. She waved him off with a smirk, assuring him she would look perfect as always. But he didn't smile. His voice carried weight when he told her it wasn't about looking perfect, it was about being kind. She chuckled lightly, brushing him off again, saying she was kind to those who deserved it. He looked at her firmly and said, "No, to everyone." Their eyes met in the mirror, tension rising between them. She broke the stare first, fixing her wig and turning away. At breakfast, the table was set like a feast. Imported coffee steamed in delicate china, the aroma of yam porridge filled the room, bread still warm from the oven. He ate quietly, his eyes on his tablet, while she scrolled through her phone, tapping her diamond rings against the porcelain like she was performing. Before leaving, he mentioned he had a quick meeting nearby. They would meet later at Royal Plaza to shop. She smiled faintly, more interested in the idea of being seen in public than in his words. He leaned down, kissed her forehead, and walked out. She let out a dramatic sigh, then rose from the table and glided into her wardrobe. The wardrobe was a world of its own. Gowns in every shade, shoes lined like soldiers, handbags stacked like trophies. She ran her hand along the fabrics until she chose a bold Ankara gown embroidered with golden stones. Sliding into red stilettos, she twirled before the mirror, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. Power, she told herself. That's what they see. By late morning, her black SUV pulled into the VIP spot at Royal Plaza. The driver jumped out to open her door. She stepped out like a queen descending her throne, her gown glittering under the sun. Heads turned instantly. Guards at the entrance straightened. A cashier inside pressed her hands to her chest and whispered to a colleague. Phones lifted discreetly, capturing her every step. Whispers followed her. That's her. That's the billionaire's wife. Always looking like royalty. She inhaled deeply, savoring the moment. Then, just as she reached for a shopping cart, a voice stopped her. "Madam, please, anything at all. I haven't eaten since yesterday." She froze, frown forming. Near the trolley bay stood a man. Thin, dusty, with a torn coat and tangled beard. His bag hung by threads, his hair unkempt, but his eyes, calm, steady, unwavering. She waved him off sharply, telling him to go and work, to stop disgracing himself. But his voice came again, steady, almost dignified. He said he had tried, everywhere. He only asked for bread. He would even share it with the guards. Shoppers slowed their steps. His tone wasn't desperate. It carried a weight that drew ears. Murmurs rippled. Something about him didn't match his appearance. Her pride swelled. She raised her chin higher, her voice sharper. Share with who? Look at yourself. You're not sick, you're not old, you're just lazy. Do you think money falls from the sky? My husband is younger than you, and he built an empire. Be like him. The man's gaze didn't waver. His words came calmly, piercing like a blade. Is he kind? The question silenced the air. Her chest tightened. Heat rose to her cheeks, but she forced a laugh, tilting her head proudly. The crowd was watching now, whispers spreading. She snapped at him to leave before she poured water on him. She shook the bottle in her hand, her voice rising. He didn't move. His stillness cut through her pride. Her anger boiled over. The sound of the slap cracked through the air. Gasps exploded. A baby whimpered. Phones lifted higher, recording every second. The man's cheek flared red, but he did not flinch. He simply looked at her, his eyes steady, quiet and deep. Some voices in the crowd rose. That was too much. He didn't insult her. Why slap him? But she stood tall, chest heaving, forcing a smirk. Let that teach you, she said. And just then, the supermarket doors slid open. Her husband stepped out with a bag of groceries. He froze, his eyes locking not on her, but on the man she had struck. The bag in his hand tightened. The crowd fell silent, phone still recording. She forced a smile, calling out to him. But his eyes never left the man's. The silence grew heavier. The crowd at the entrance shifted uneasily. The sting of the slap still hung in the air, the whispers growing louder with every passing second. She straightened her gown, forcing herself to smile as her husband approached. Darling, you're here, she said brightly, pretending nothing had happened. Let's go, I've been waiting for you. But he didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the man she had slapped. His jaw tightened, his grip on the shopping bag firm enough to crumple it. The beggar slowly raised his head. Their eyes met, and for the first time, the husband's expression broke. Shock washed over his face, followed by disbelief. You, he muttered under his breath, almost dropping the bag. The beggar's lips curved faintly, not in a smile but in recognition. It's been a long time, he said quietly, his voice low yet clear enough for the crowd to hear. Gasps rippled again. She blinked rapidly, confused, her forced smile faltering. Wait. You know this man. Her husband's silence spoke louder than words. He finally turned to her, his eyes heavy with disappointment. What have you done? Her heart skipped. What do you mean? He's a beggar. He came to embarrass me in front of everyone. I put him in his place, that's all. Her husband looked at the crowd, then back at her. Do you even know who you just humiliated? His voice shook, not with fear, but with anger. This is Ezekiel Bamadiel. The name fell like thunder. Some of the onlookers gasped again. Murmurs rose, people repeating it in disbelief. She frowned, scoffing nervously. Ezekiel who? Never heard of him. The beggar's eyes stayed calm, but his words cut deep. Maybe not by name. But your husband does. We built Fortune Guard systems together. Every line of code, every contract, every sleepless night. And when it was time to reap the fruit, I was thrown aside. The crowd buzzed louder. Phones stayed up, capturing every word. Her husband tried to interject, but Ezekiel's voice grew firmer. I was left with nothing. Stripped of my shares, cast into the streets. You think you see a beggar, but what you see is betrayal. And now, madam, you have added your own insult to my wounds. Her husband clenched his fist. Ezekiel, it wasn't supposed to be like that. You disappeared. You disappeared. Ezekiel's voice rose, his calm now edged with fire. You made me disappear. You knew the board wanted me gone. And you didn't stop them. The murmurs became a storm. Shoppers were no longer pretending to browse. They gathered openly, some shaking their heads, some whispering, others recording like it was a film. She looked around, panic creeping in. Her carefully curated image was crumbling before strangers' eyes. She hissed under her breath, Richard, let's leave. Don't stand here arguing with this man. But Richard didn't move. He faced Ezekiel, his voice quiet, regretful. I thought you were gone for good. I was never gone, Ezekiel replied. I was watching. Waiting. And today, your wife has done what you failed to do, expose you. The silence that followed was heavy. She shifted uncomfortably, her hand clutching her bag, her throat dry. Then Ezekiel bent slightly, his gaze burning into her. Madam, you slapped a man you thought was beneath you. But you have slapped more than a beggar. You have disgraced yourself before your husband, and before the truth. Her chest tightened. The weight of eyes on her was unbearable. Enough of this, she snapped suddenly, her voice cracking. Driver. Let's go. She stormed toward the SUV, heels clicking like gunshots against the pavement. The driver scrambled to open the door. She slid in, trembling with rage, while her husband remained frozen, still staring at the man who once was his closest friend. Ezekiel stepped back, his face calm again, but his eyes told a different story. They were no longer the eyes of a beggar. They were the eyes of a man who had returned for something more. As the SUV drove off, silence stretched. Then murmurs erupted into full voices. Did you hear that? The beggar was once his partner. She slapped him like he was nothing. And her husband didn't deny it. The story had already left the supermarket entrance. In that age of smartphones, the video was spreading like wildfire. Inside the SUV, she pulled off her sunglasses and turned to her husband, her voice sharp with anger. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you defend me? His reply was low, almost like a warning. Because you don't understand who you just crossed. Her hands clenched on her bag. For the first time, fear slipped through her pride. The car rolled on, the tension thick, the city outside oblivious to the storm that had just begun. The video spread faster than wildfire. By evening, it was everywhere. Clips of the slap replayed across phones, whispers turned into online debates, and hashtags with her name trended across social media. At home, she paced the living room in fury. Every ping from her phone was another notification, another stranger mocking her, another insult cutting through the image she had built. She threw the phone on the couch and screamed. How dare they? How dare they post me without permission? Don't they know who I am? Her husband sat quietly on the edge of the sofa, his head lowered, his hands folded. He didn't answer. His silence only fueled her rage. She whirled around to him. Say something. You just sat there like a coward while that beggar humiliated me in front of everyone. He lifted his head slowly, his eyes heavy with disappointment. That man you call a beggar was once my brother. We built everything together. Fortune Guard would not exist without him. She froze, her lips parting slightly. His tone was not defensive, it was mournful. He continued. I thought he was gone. I thought the board's decision had buried him. But he's back. And if he chooses to fight, I don't know if I can stop him this time. Fear crept into her chest, but pride refused to let it show. He's nothing. Look at him. He's finished. Her husband's voice hardened. Finished men don't speak like that. Did you hear his words? He hasn't lost everything. He still carries fire. And now the world has seen your hand against him. She turned away, gripping the edge of the couch tightly. Her mind raced. For the first time, she wondered if her slap had been more than just an outburst. Maybe it was the spark that would ignite something far bigger. The doorbell rang. The maid entered, holding an envelope. It was thick, sealed in gold. She handed it over nervously and left. He opened it. His eyes widened as he read. She rushed to his side, snatching it from him. The letter was short, formal, yet heavy with power. To Richard Okoro and Fortune Guard Systems. This is only the beginning. Ezekiel Bamadiel. Her heart thumped. She dropped the letter as though it burned her fingers. What does it mean? She whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. His silence was louder than any reply. Meanwhile, in another part of Lagos, Ezekiel sat quietly in a modest apartment. Gone was the torn coat. He wore a simple shirt, his beard trimmed, his eyes sharper. Around him sat two men and a woman, all professionals, laptops open, files spread across the table. One of them asked softly, "Sir, are you ready?" He leaned back, folding his arms. For years they thought I was gone. They built their empire on my back and cast me aside. Tonight, the world has seen who truly holds the power. We begin now. Back at the mansion, she could not sleep. She tossed on the bed, replaying the slap in her mind, replaying the calmness in his eyes, the quiet fire in his voice. For the first time, her pride felt brittle, like glass ready to crack. Her husband lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, his thoughts heavy. He knew what was coming. He had felt it in Ezekiel's voice. This was no ordinary man. This was a storm returning to claim its due. As dawn approached, phones buzzed again. News outlets had picked up the story. Business blogs whispered of a hidden partner returning. Stock values trembled. FortuneGuard's empire, once untouchable, now stood on the edge of uncertainty. And it had all begun with one slap. Morning came with no peace. Reporters crowded outside the mansion gates, cameras flashing, microphones pointed, shouting questions into the air. The clip of the slap had grown into more than gossip, it was news. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire's wife slaps Beggar in public. Hidden partner returns." Inside the mansion, Vanessa stood by the window, clutching the curtains tightly. Anger mixed with fear as she watched the swarm beyond the gates. She had always enjoyed attention, but not like this. Not when the whole city laughed at her name. Her husband sat in the living room, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low but tense. "Yes, I saw the stock report. We've lost 5% overnight. Investors are panicking. If this continues, we may lose more." He rubbed his forehead, eyes clouded with worry. She turned on him, her voice sharp. "This is all because of that man. That Ezekiel. You need to crush him before he destroys everything you've built." He lowered the phone slowly, staring at her in disbelief. "Everything we built? You think this is about me alone? You don't see it, do you? You slapped him in public. You gave him the stage, Vanessa. Now he is not just a man with a grievance. He is a man with the sympathy of the entire world." She froze, her lips parting. His words sank like stones in water. The television buzzed to life. A press conference was being streamed live. And there he was, Ezekiel Bamadiel, no longer in rags, no longer looking broken. He stood tall in a dark suit, his beard trimmed neatly, his eyes burning with calm authority. Cameras flashed around him. The media leaned forward eagerly. He spoke slowly, each word landing heavy. "Years ago, I co-founded FortuneGuard Systems. I gave it my time, my mind, my sweat. But power is cruel. I was stripped of my shares, cast aside without dignity. Yesterday, many of you saw a video. You saw me slapped, disgraced as though I were less than human. But understand this, I was not slapped alone. The truth was slapped. Justice was slapped. And today, I return not to beg, but to reclaim what is mine." Gasps filled the press hall. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras zoomed closer. At home, Vanessa clutched her chest, trembling. He can't be serious. He's bluffing." Her husband's voice was quiet, almost broken. "No. He's not bluffing. He's declaring war." On the screen, Ezekiel continued. "I call upon the board of FortuneGuard Systems. I call upon the investors, the regulators, and the people. Stand with me as I demand the truth. Stand with me as I demand my rightful place." He paused, then leaned closer to the microphones. "And to the woman who struck me, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. But because I will not let your pride distract me from justice. Forgive." The word cut deeper than an insult. Her pride shattered. She grabbed the remote and hurled it at the wall, the screen flickering before going black. "How dare he," she screamed, her voice cracking. "How dare he forgive me as though I am beneath him?" Her husband stood, his voice rising for the first time. "Enough, Vanessa. Can't you see what you've done? This is no longer about you. This is about survival. If Ezekiel succeeds, we could lose everything, the company, the fortune, the life you love so much." Silence fell heavy. Her hands shook as she reached for her phone. Messages poured in. Old friends avoiding her. Business partners distancing themselves. Even family members asking if it was true. She felt alone, abandoned, exposed. That night, she sat by herself in the darkened living room, staring at her reflection in the glass. For the first time, her beauty felt like a mask, fragile and meaningless. Pride had been her armor, but now it cracked, leaving her bare. Elsewhere, Ezekiel sat in a quiet office surrounded by his allies. Lawyers, journalists, and old friends he had called back to his side. His voice was calm but resolute. "They think this is about money. They think this is about revenge. But this is about dignity. It's about showing the world that no man can be erased. Tomorrow, we take the first step." The storm had arrived. And both sides knew, nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed were chaos. The video still trended. Investors withdrew, contracts froze, and rumors filled the air like smoke. Fortune Guard systems, once untouchable, now trembled on the edge of collapse. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere was tense. Vanessa no longer posted her glamorous photos online. Her phone was silent now, abandoned by the same people who once praised her. She sat by the window, staring at nothing, her pride eaten away by fear. Richard worked day and night, calling board members, pleading with investors. But the more he tried, the more doors slammed in his face. The shadow of Ezekiel's return loomed over every conversation. Finally, a notice arrived. The board of Fortune Guard had summoned Richard for an emergency meeting. The letter was signed with a name he had not seen in years, Ezekiel Bamadiel. That evening, Richard walked into the boardroom. Vanessa insisted on coming, her face pale but her eyes desperate. They entered together, but the room was already filled. Shareholders sat stiffly, lawyers lined the sides, and at the head of the table sat Ezekiel, no longer a beggar, but a man reborn. His suit was sharp, his presence commanding. Richard stopped in his tracks. Vanessa's hand trembled in his. Ezekiel rose slowly, the entire room silent as his gaze cut through them. "It's been a long time," Ezekiel said. "But today, the time has come for truth." Richard swallowed hard. "Ezekiel, listen." But Ezekiel raised a hand, silencing him. "Years ago, we built this company together. I trusted you as a brother. And when the vultures came, you stood by and watched them strip me of everything. I lost my shares, my name, my dignity. I lost years of my life. And now, after everything, do you know what hurts the most? It's not the money. It's not the position. It's that you let me disappear." The room was quiet. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Vanessa stepped forward suddenly, her voice cracking. "Enough. You've made your point. You want revenge, you've had it. You've humiliated us. What more do you want?" Ezekiel's eyes turned to her, calm and piercing. "Revenge? No. If it was revenge I wanted, I would have destroyed you already. What I want is justice. What I want is restoration. And what I want is respect." Vanessa's lips trembled, but no words came. For the first time, she couldn't hide behind pride. Ezekiel turned back to Richard. "You have a choice. Step down from Fortune Guard. Hand me back my rightful place. Or fight me in the open and watch everything crumble." Richard's face paled. The weight of the room pressed on him. He looked around at the board members, at the investors who once cheered his name. Now, their eyes shifted toward Ezekiel, silently acknowledging his strength. Slowly, Richard lowered his head. "You win." Ezekiel's voice was steady. "No. Truth wins." Silence filled the room. Then, one by one, the board members nodded. The papers were signed. In that moment, Fortune Guard changed hands. Ezekiel had returned, not as a beggar, but as the man he was always meant to be. Vanessa sank into a chair, tears welling in her eyes. The woman who once laughed at the poor, who slapped dignity out of a man she thought beneath her, now sat broken. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "I didn't know. I didn't know who you were." Ezekiel looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You didn't need to know who I was to treat me with respect. Humanity is not about status. It's about kindness." The words pierced her deeper than any slap. For the first time, she bowed her head, humbled not by force, but by truth. Later that night, as the Okoro mansion stood quiet, Richard and Vanessa sat together in silence. The empire they once controlled was gone, but something else lingered, the lesson of dignity, the reminder that pride without compassion leads only to downfall. And somewhere across Lagos, Ezekiel stood on the balcony of his new office, the city lights glowing beneath him. His eyes were calm, his heart steady. He had not just reclaimed his place, he had proven a truth greater than wealth. The storm was over. And in the silence that followed, a new dawn began.